New Jersey Governor Mikey Sherrill saying family visitations will resume at an immigration detention center in Newark, where protests have been taking place for more than a week amid reports of unsafe and unsanitary conditions inside that ICE facility. Tensions were high on Saturday night as protesters threw projectiles, set fires, and clashed with officers trying to secure the area. You can see the chaotic scenes there. Police then deployed tear gas and flashbang grenades to break up the crowd. Just after midnight, the mayor of Newark issued a curfew covering a half-mile area around the detention center until further notice. Democratic Senator Andy Kim, who's met with detainees inside that facility, weighed in on the protests yesterday.
A lot of people are angry. A lot of people are frustrated, feeling like they're seeing and hearing about things happening on our soil with our taxpayer dollars that is not in line with our values as a nation. I feel it, too.
Meanwhile, a congressional delegation was finally granted access to the facility yesterday after days of being turned away. They're just doing their oversight capacities. Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries released a statement afterward, reading, quote, "The conditions of confinement we witnessed firsthand and discussed with approximately 24 detainees at the Delaney Hall Detention Center shock the conscience. We learned of unsanitary living conditions, lack of adequate medical care, and unhealthy food. This is not America," he said. The Department of Homeland Security responded then to Jeffries on social media, writing in part, quote, "This is a detention center. We do not provide luxury accommodations. What we do provide are basic necessities like beds, clean water, comprehensive health care, and 3 meals a day until they go home." That is the state of play on the ground. I want to bring in White House reporter for Politico, Maya Ward, here on set with me. So, Maya, what is the latest that you're hearing from your sources about where things stand this morning at Delaney Hall? You've got a curfew in place, pretty intense clashes over the weekend, all of this over the idea that there are unsanitary conditions there, which now congressional leaders are saying, yeah, we've been inside, we've seen it.
Yeah, I mean, I think what we're seeing happen, I mean, this is playing out in both parties where Republicans are kind of stuck between factions within the party. I think Democrats are facing the same thing, and we're seeing this play out for Sherrill right now. I mean, on one hand, you know, Democrats in New Jersey, they're talking about the need to close this facility. And so she's supporting that and standing by that. But at the same time, as we've seen in these other states, she also doesn't want these protests to continue to spiral out of control. And so she's trying to kind of strike that balance. We saw the curfew. We saw on Friday they announced these kind of like protest zones. And the way she explained it is that she doesn't want the Trump administration to have a pretext for then expanding operations, as we saw in Minneapolis, when, of course, 2 U.S. citizens were killed. And so that's kind of the place that she's stuck in between right now.
Yeah, I think you're really right to point out the difficult position that the governor of New Jersey finds herself in and the ways that she's trying to balance this. And then on the other side of it, you've got Markwayne Mullin, now head of DHS. And we were talking earlier about how it's been a bit of a quiet period for him. And yet this really is, and you were writing about this over the weekend, one of his first major tests to see what does he do in this kind of a situation? Does it stay calm or calmer in comparison to Minneapolis, or does it become something that balloons?
Yeah, it's been interesting because it's been pretty quiet over, I think he was sworn in like 2 months ago, if I have that timeline right. And it has been this kind of like impenetrable honeymoon period, and even challenges, whether it's DHS funding or whatever. I've had sources saying, you know, it's a honeymoon period right now. Like, even if people have criticism, they're not necessarily expressing it.
Yeah.
But this one is interesting because he's been talking so much about this idea of pulling customs staffs from international airports to punish sanctuary cities. And in the context of Newark, he's talked about doing that and letting these customs staff then go and help ICE at Delaney Hall. And internally, like, that's facing a lot of pushback. I had administration officials tell me on Friday that this is a really bad idea. For one, we've seen the administration kind of recalibrate and try to take immigration out of the spotlight. This could risk adding more fuel to that fire.
Yeah.
On the other hand, if we see a bunch of travel delays and issues at Newark, at other airports, right before the World Cup, it's like, who gets the blame for that? It's going to be Donald Trump. So
exactly. And I wonder, when we look at Markwayne Mullin, if this is his first true test, knowing the things we know about him. He is a hardliner on immigration, someone who would echo a lot of the red meat that President Trump put out over the course of the first year of his administration. and then also someone who saw the things that befell Kristi Noem and landed him in this job in the first place. And so when you see him doing things like toying with closing or limiting customs enforcement at international airports ahead of the World Cup, but also knowing that he doesn't want to have things explode out of control, I mean, like, what are the underpinnings of Markwayne Mullin in this moment?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to probably be writing the story over and over and over again until midterms, and already have been over the last 2 months. Like, this is going to be his central challenge, is that he is stuck between these hardliners who are saying, go, 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 more deportations, you need to be tough. And they've already questioned his credentials on that front. Mm-hmm. At the same time, as we've seen over the last 2 months, the administration has tried to recalibrate. They've tried to rein it in because they know that these headlines, everything that happened in Minneapolis, turned voters against the president in terms of on the immigration front. And so he's also stuck between those Republicans who are a little uneasy on the issue right now and think that they have lost some ground. And so he's trying to kind of strike that balance. And it does feel like this talk about pulling customs staff is really about, kind of trying to talk tough on this issue.
Yeah, ahead of a midterm election, which he also innately knows, having been in the Senate and in the House for all of these years, that people are worried about their political prospects right now, in addition to watching what's happening in Newark, watching what's happening with Iran, all of it very much in the mix. And yet President Trump spent most of his Saturday posting on Truth Social. The president's first post was at 11:15 a.m., more than a 700-word rant about a federal judge who on Friday ruled the Kennedy Center must remove the president's name from the building. Over the next 14 hours, the president posted more than 60 times, finally ending at just after 1 a.m. Sunday morning. His social media spree included several political memes attacking perceived political rivals, memes about crime under his administration compared to former President Biden, multiple AI-generated pictures, including 2 separate posts of Trump on Mount Rushmore, and at least 3 posts with George Washington, one of which was the 2 men on horses near a Trump-branded NASCAR with the Washington Monument and the White House in the background, and a space shuttle flying over them. Honestly, there are some days that I joke that some of these headlines feel like Mad Libs, and in this instance, it actually feels like they just did Mad Libs with AI. But I think the larger point is we're talking about serious stuff here, whether it's what's happening at Delaney Hall and whether that speaks to the fabric of America, whether we're talking about the Iran war, whether we're talking about Americans who consistently say, I can't afford the things I need in my life, whether it's gas or groceries. And the president is on a meme spree. I mean, again, what's the juxtaposition? And what do you hear from White House officials who I know that they say, this is what's baked in the cake, this is who he is, and you can do multiple things at once. But, can you?
Yeah, I mean, I think they are aware that this has long been a challenge with this president, is staying on message. I mean, Friday we were just talking about him weighing this deal with Iran and, not being able to make a decision. But as you said, I mean, they do know how he is, and they know how his messaging is going to be. And that is why, especially right now, when they know Americans are really concerned about prices and that affordability message needs to be out front and center. I mean, they are relying on some of those other key messengers who they know are more likely to stay on that message in the months ahead.
So if we were to look for who the best White House messenger is that the White House wants us to be paying attention to, who would you say that is? Who do they point to?
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on the issue. I mean, from some of my sources who I've talked to, on gas prices right now, they point to Bessent as being someone. We just saw him at the podium. Yeah. They've obviously had Rubio out there, and he got a lot of praise for how he handled that briefing and explained why we're in the war with Iran, what the next steps are. We've obviously seen Vance out there as well. Yeah. So we're getting kind of a cast of characters right now, especially while Caroline Leavitt is still out on leave. But, they're all having to kind of play that role on various issues right now.
I'm just always interested in who the person who's the most disciplined on the message is, because it gives us the nice contrast of what the White House wants the messaging to be and then what the president ultimately ends up saying himself. And he, at the end of the day, still has the biggest megaphone. All instructive, a lot going on. White House reporter for Politico, Maya Ward, thank you. And I look forward to more of your Mullin reporting, because it sounds like we're going to need a lot of it.